So, good afternoon everyone. For today's lesson, we are going to tackle about humanistic approach, specifically existential approach. So, in the 1960s and 1970s, there are growing interest about the counselors in third force in therapy. So, it is an alternative to the psychoanalytic and behavioral approaches. Under this heading fall the person-centered approach. Humanistic approach has three approaches: the person-centered approach, the Gestalt therapy, and the existential therapy. So for today's lesson, we are going to tackle only about the existential therapy. So humanistic, humanism, humanist, these are the terms that are all connected to humanistic approach. It only means that it studies the whole person and the uniqueness of each individual. So unlike the behaviorists, humanistic psychologists believe that humans are not solely the product of their environment. Rather, humanistic psychologists study about the meanings, the understandings, and the experiences of an individual involved in growing, teaching, and learning. So they are also emphasizing about how all human beings shared love, grief, caring, and self-worth. So what humanistic psychologists value? So they value three important encounters. So first is the awareness of antecedents to the behavior. As we all know, antecedents to behavior meaning what happened before the behavior occurred. In layman terms, an antecedent is what was happening or who was present right before the behavior occurred. These are the stimulus, events that we can say na nakapag-trigger siya kung bakit nagkaroon ng ganong behavior. Second is the importance of childhood experience. So, how parents, how the home influences the child to have that kind of behavior. So this is also where their first learning experiences deeply it can affect their future physical, cognitive, emotional, and social development. And lastly, the unconscious psychological process, which consists of process in the mind with occur of that automatically are not available to introspection, na kasama dito yung processes, memories, interest, and yung motivations. So what humanistic psychologists argue about is that humans are more than the collection of behaviors or object of unconscious forces. Meaning, they are more than the collection of behaviors and they are more on the uniqueness of the individuals. So what humanistic psychologists emphasizes about? They emphasizes about primacy of establishing a therapeutic relationship that is collaborative, meaning the therapist and the client have the collaboration, have the understanding what is happening all about. Accepting, meaning you all accept what is the client's interest. Authentic means valid, legit, and honors the unique world. So every clients have different unique stories. So as a therapist, you need to be open to the unique world of the client. So humanistic therapy, how humanistic therapy helps individuals. So it helps individuals as being composed of physical, intellectual, emotional, behavioral, creative, and spiritual elements. These are all the characters that can help an individual to help the client reach self-actualization. Self-actualization meaning the healthier sense of self. Humanistic therapies helps clients to remove attitudes, behaviors that do not produce a positive state of being. Meaning, tinutulungan ng mga therapist na alisin yung mga negative behaviors ng isang client and nire-replace to ng mas positive state of being. So, it also integrate the various components of their unique personalities. That is, kung may negative attitudes or behaviors, they replace it with more self-awareness, mature, and authentic self. Next is, what are the key points of humanistic therapy? So the key points of humanistic therapy, it focuses on the understanding of the client's experiences, frames, it respects differences of the clients, it explores problem with authentic approach and helps to develop the client with insight, courage, and responsibility. And lastly, what are the expectations of the client to gain from the treatment? So, existential psychotherapy have spontaneously in the minds and works of a number of psychologists, namely Rollo May, Viktor Frankl, James Bajental, Friedrich Nietzsche, Soren Kierkegaard, Jean-Paul Sartre, Irvin Yalom, Kirk Sneger, Stephen Diamond, and Mortel here in Europe in the 1940s and 1950s. So, what is existential therapy under humanistic approach? This human existential psychotherapy, it uses positive approach that applauds human capacities with a genuine perception and the limitation of human being, human spirit, and the human mind. Meaning, humanistic and existential approach, they share a belief that people have the capacity for self-awareness and choice. However, kung nagsishare sila ng same belief, yung same belief naman yun is from different theories. Kung yung humanistic perspective views focuses on basically good and meaningful relationship to make choices that are in the interest of oneself and others, yung existential approach naman, nagfo-focus siya sa inherent capacity for responsible self-direction. So, what does existential therapies or psychotherapy or approach does? So, it asks deep questions about the nature of the human being and the nature of anxiety, despair, grief, loneliness, isolation, and anomie. It also deals centrally with the question of creativity and love. So, the existentialist, on the other hand, is more interested in helping the client to find philosophical meaning in the face of anxiety by choosing to think and act authentically and responsibly. So, yung existential therapy, yung central problems talaga na sinasabi nila na doon nanggagaling yung negative behavior is people face embedded in anxiety over loneliness, isolation, despair, and ultimately death. So, creativity, love, authenticity, free will, these are the things that recognize toward transformation na pwedeng makapagpa-help para sa individual to live meaningful in uncertainty or in the face of uncertainty and suffering. So, everyone suffers losses. For example, is yung may friend tayong namatay, natigil yung relationship natin, merong mga umalis, and itong mga klaseng mga situation na to or circumstances, it can cause anxiety because they are the reminders of human limitations and inevitable death. So, existential therapy, this assumes naman na yung mga belief ng problems from not exercising choices and judgment enough or well enough is to forge meaning in their lives. And each existential therapist said that each individual should be responsible for making meaning out of life. Meaning they have the choice, they should make meaning out of life. So what are the basic philosophy of existential therapy? First one is existentialists believe that the individual writes their own life story by the choices that they make. As I have said earlier, that each individual is responsible for making meaning out of life. Second one is psychopathology is defined by existentialists as neglecting to meaningful choices and accentuating one's potential. So if you have potential, you must make out of it. Third one is anxiety is seen as the motivational force that helps the clients to reach their potential. So in this philosophy, naging positive anxiety naman siya. Conversely, itong negative anxiety is also seen that anxiety can also paralyze the forces that prevents the clients or the individuals to reach from their full potential. Therefore, through awareness, this anxiety can be helpful in living more fully, as long as we see it as positive anxiety. So, Frankl proposes that in finding a meaning of our own particular life or circumstances, we can rise above hopelessness, depression, and various neuroses that afflict us and build a satisfying and worthwhile existence for ourselves. So Frank shares that each person searches for meaning in life, and while this meaning may change, the meaning never ceases to be. And according to Frank, life's meaning, it can be discovered in 3 ways. The first one is it can be discovered by doing the deed, mga accomplishments natin, being on top, joining in pageants, joining in organizations, on anything that can help us accomplish something, or being DL, Dean's Listers. And second is it can be discovered by experiencing a value. How can you value beauty? How can you value love? How can you value nature and arts? How can you value the world as beauty, as beautiful? How can you value the person around you? And the lastly is by suffering. So it reconciles suffer ourselves to fate. So what is the key concept of existential psychotherapy or existential approach? So humans are in constant state of transition. We are in the state of transitioning, emerging, evolving, and becoming who we are. So there are basic dimensions of human condition. So isa-isahin natin yan so you can understand fully what are these basic dimensions are. So first one is the capacity for self-awareness. According to the book, or according to my source, as human beings, we can reflect and make choices because we are capable of self-awareness. To expand our awareness is to increase our capacity to live fully. The greater our awareness, the greater our possibilities for freedom. Awareness is realizing na we are subject to loneliness. We are really open for meaningless. We are subject for emptiness, for guilt and isolation. But on the other hand, we have potential. We have the choice to act or not to act. This is according to Existential Therapy Proposition 1. The next one is the freedom and responsibility. So, we are constantly confronted with the world, with the choice of what kind of person we are becoming. And to exist is never to be finished with this kind of choosing. Meaning, habang nabubuhay tayo, we are having a difficulties of determining who we are. Because we are basically free human beings. We must accept responsibilities that accompanies our freedom. We are free to choose among alternatives. We have the freedom, we have the choice, but we have a role in shaping our destinies. This is according to Existential Therapy, Proposition 2. Third one is striving for identity and relationship to others. So, rather than trusting ourselves to reach or to search within who we are and finding our own answers to the conflicts in our life, mas nafo-focus tayo kung ano yung ina-expect ng ibang tao sa atin. Because we are human beings. We are just human beings na kapag naisip natin na, dapat pala ganito ako, so dapat maging ganito talaga ako. But, we must learn to enjoy being alone, we can enjoy, and we can also enjoy being with others. But, dapat iisipin natin na while we are searching for ourselves, we must not lose ourselves. We are ultimately alone, yet related. The experience of relatedness will improve once you're comfortable with yourself. You cannot have a relationship with other people if you cannot find yourself first. Dapat kung maghahanap ka na ng partner or kung magkakaroon ka na ng relationship with other people, you must know that you are both different people and you have different time, you have different life. So, dapat open ka kung mag-isa ka lang or kung may karelasyon ka. Ang importante is you must find yourself first. Next is search for meaning. So, for search of meaning, some of the underlying conflicts that bring people in counseling or therapy are questions of who am I? Why am I here? What do I want from my life? What gives my life purpose? Where is the source of meaning for me in life? Ano ba talaga ang purpose ko sa mundong to? Ano ba talaga yung mga kailangan kong gawin para pag nawala ako, wala akong pagsisisihan. Pag tumanda ako, wala akong pagsisisihan. Meaning like pleasure must be pursued obliquely. Finding meaning in life is a byproduct of commitment to creating, to loving, and working. Meaningless in life leads to emptiness and hollowness. So you must find meaning with your life. You must find your purpose. You must find what are the things that will help you grow. What are the things that will help you satisfied, so that you will not be alone with emptiness and hollowness. So anxiety as a condition of living. So, existential anxiety is conceptualized as the unavoidable result of being confronted with the given of existence. Meaning, nabuhay ka, there will be anxiety. Nabuhay ka, there will be death. Nabuhay ka, there will be freedom. Nabuhay ka, there will be isolation and meaningless. Anxiety is part of human condition. Life can't be lived, nor can death be faced without anxiety. If we have the courage to face ourselves and life may be frightened, we will be able to change. Opening up to new life means opening up to new anxieties. So, whenever you're facing with different difficulties, always know that it cannot be normal na magkaroon ka ng anxiety, but there will always be anxiety because you are opening new life or new book in your life. This is according to Existential Therapy, Proposition 5. Next is the awareness of death and non-being. So it is necessary to think about death if you are to think significantly about life. If you are living most out of your life, you must know that death is inevitable. Awareness of death and non-being, because death is also a basic human condition. It is awareness of it to give significance to living. We have limited time to complete our projects. We have limited time to know our purposes. We have limited time in this world. So each moment is crucial. So each moment you should enjoy. You should have your purpose. You should have your life as meaningful as you can. You should have your life as happy, as enjoyable as you can. And this is according to Existential Therapy, Proposition 6. So the next topic about existential therapy is what are the role of counselor. So the first one is each client is considered a unique relationship with the counselor because they are focusing on authentic with the client and entering into a deep personal sharing relationship. This is important na makapag-develop ka ng relationship with your client as a counselor because the client is trusting you with different information about his or her life. And the moment na makapag-share na siya ng mga ganitong information is it will be a tool for you as a counselor to use this information for her to, or for his or her to have a meaningful life. Second one is the counselor models how to be authentic, to realize personal potential, and make decisions with emphasis on mutuality, wholeness, and growth. It is important to focus that the counselor focuses on how the client become whole again. Because not halos lahat ng mga nagpupunta sa mga therapists or individuals who visit therapists, they are empty, they are not whole, they are not hindi pa sila fully grown because merong mga circumstances na nakapagpatigil kaya hindi sila na fully grown or hindi sila nabuo ng nabuo. So the counselor should know how to make out of these potentials and to make decision about mutuality, wholeness, and growth. Lastly, existential counselors do not diagnose, nor do they use assessment models like DSM-4, DSM-5, and other books to be used as a reference.
Here are the focus and goals of existential therapy. But let us first hear what are the contributions that existential therapy provides. Existential therapy is grounded on the assumption that we are free and therefore we are responsible for our own choices and actions. Its major contribution is to recognize for the subjective approach based on a complete view of human condition that calls or need for the philosophical statement on what it means to be a person. Using this approach of therapy would help the person back into his or her central focus that was lost when he or she is overwhelmed by his anxiety. Dito, mabibigyan niya ng panibagong pananaw yung tao doon sa dilemma niya para makita niya yung dilemma na yun sa ibang aspeto or in a positive view. For example, the client's dilemma is about fear of death. Ang gagawin ng therapist is gagawin niya yung client na makita na hindi dapat katakutan yung death, but rather sees it as an opportunity to live his or her life to the fullest. Ang isa pang contribution ng existential approach is nakatuon sila sa human quality of therapeutic relationship, which rejects the objectivity that hinders empathetic and subjective relationship between the client. So, existential therapy uses a subjective approach which lessen the professional distance and is less dehumanizing because they do not see the client as unhelpful. So, existential therapy in multiculturalism. The existential is focused on a subjective experience or phenomenology, which is a strength from a multicultural perspective. So the client here is challenged to look at the price for the decisions that they made because they also need to consider their behavior based on a social and cultural conditioning. It also helps the clients of all culture examine meaning and harmony in their lives on the inevitable issues like love, anxiety, sufferings, and death that transcends the boundary that separates the culture, which is then the I and thou relationship is necessary to multiculturalism. Okay. The I-thou relationship. As a therapist, you should see the client in an I-thou relationship or as a fully interdependent subject, which lessens the chance of dehumanizing the therapy. An I-thou relationship is effective when there is a diverse population of clients which is friendly to a multicultural approach. because its focus is on universality or the similarities we all share. So the goals of the therapy. The goals of existential therapy are to enable people to have the clients take responsibility for their life and life decisions. Second one is to develop self-awareness, which is the core of existential therapy, and to promote potential freedom and commitment to have a better life choices. Third is it will help the client develop an internal frame of reference as opposed to the outward one. Next is identify factors that blocks the client's freedom, and also successfully negotiate with the client and come to their experiences in terms of their past, present, and future crises. Next is to make the client become more truthful with themselves and find clarity on what their purpose in life is and how they can learn from the past to create something valuable and meaningful to live for. Connoting a positive note on that past experiences that have been rather the source of their anxiety. And then lastly is to understand themselves and others better and find ways of effectively communicating and being with others. According to Bansik 2016, the goal of existential therapy is to embrace the true nature of human existence and overcome anxiety and find meaning in their life. So one thing that existentialists can be criticized is because they are excessively individualistic and they ignore the social factors that causes human problems. Individualistic in a manner that the therapy is centered to the client's self-determining and self-awareness and holding their own responsibility, that on which it holds the fact that they tend to ignore the social factors that causes human problems. Pero dito na pumapasok yung existential integrative approach. The issue of ignoring the social factors that causes human problem is what the existential integrative approach deals with. On this approach, the existential therapist or practitioner is not only concerned with facilitating individual change, but promoting as well an in-depth inquiry that has implication in social change. In this manner, assessing one individual problem can be a course to develop a change in a society. Thus, it accounts that existential is not completely ignoring the social factors but aims at change in society by seeing and assessing an individual person's dilemma. The second issue of existential therapy is it lacks direction from the counselor. Some other clients may tend to find a structured and problem-oriented approach that is lacking or applicable on an existential therapist. By this, there is a tendency na maisip ng client na parang binabaliwala lang sila nung therapist, and then misunderstanding kapag nabigla sila sa idea na sila ang may hawak ng life choices nila. Thus, yung major task ng therapy dito is to provide enough concrete direction for the client without taking responsibility away from them. Kahit na the client is the one providing the direction of the therapy, there is of course a guide from the therapist. Existential therapy emphasizes that normal anxiety and guilt is present in all of our life. Kung kaya, only the neurotic forms of the client yung kailangan mabago doon sa therapy. Since there is an existing anxiety already in a human person, nasa tao na kung paano nila hahawakan yung anxiety. A bad anxiety will make you problems, which is why the therapy is needed. While A good anxiety, it will make you or provide you opportunities to see that dilemma to a more positive perspective or view. The person can be freed from neurotic anxiety and guilt only as she recognizes normal anxiety at the same time.
Techniques of existential therapy.
Existential therapy is designed to highlight the free will of the client. It also helps in finding self-determination and to find or create meaning in one's life. Existential therapy is often independent. It is focused on the client, and the therapist is parsing or analyzing the perceptions in life of the client. So, kaya doon nakafocus yung existential therapy because existentialists believe that individuals create their own life story based on the choices that they make. So, what are the techniques that was used in existential therapy? Phenomenological method was the common technique that was used in existential therapy. The therapists strive to be fully present, engaged, and free of expectation as possible during the therapeutic encounter by attempting to temporarily put aside all the preconceptions regarding the process. The purpose of this is to have a clear understanding and acceptance of what a certain situation or experience might signify to the client's particular time of life.
Other techniques used in existential therapy. First is empathic reflection, or the therapist express understanding of what the client is feeling and the experiences underlying these feelings. Ito yung kumbaga putting yourself in someone else's shoe. Ang ginagawa ni therapist is ganon para mas ma-feel niya kung ano yung nararamdaman ng client. Second is Socratic questioning. Form of disciplined questioning that can be used to pursue thought in many directions and for many purposes, including to explore complex ideas, to get to the truth of things, to open up issues and problems, to uncover assumptions, to analyze concepts, to distinguish what we know from what we don't know. Dito naman yung magtatanong ka lang ng mga open-ended questions, magtatanong mo kung ano yung mga insights nila and perspectives sa mga bagay-bagay. Ganun. Third is active listening. It is used in counseling, training, and solving disputes or conflicts. It requires that the listener fully concentrate, understand, respond, and then remember what is being said. Sa mga therapist is, isa sa mga kailangan is marunong at magaling kang makinig. Kasi minsan yung mga client is gusto lang nila na may makikinig sa kanila, and syempre pagka therapist ka, kailangan matandaan mo kung ano yung mga sinasabi kasi minsan doon nakapaloob yung mga problem or yung mga root ng problema nila.